Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon where you're tuning in from. My name is Lisa Thuman, and I'm the Senior Director for Teaching and Learning for EdTechTeam. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm going to go ahead and share our slides and get us started here. We have just an amazing topic tonight and some amazing panelists with us. So welcome to K2CanToo. This evening we have with us three stellar guest panelists. Janet Burnett comes to us from Muscle Shoals, Alabama, Susan Stewart from Fresno, California, and Mia Leonard from Chicago, Illinois. I'll show this URL tons and tons of time, but you can find the slides that accompany this webinar at edtech.team/K2CanToo webinar. So, as I mentioned, you can find the resources at edtech.team/K2CanToo webinar. I also invite you to complete the form linked in the slide deck because we are giving away the just about to be released, primarily Google, online course. And I'm going to ask Susan, the author of the course, to talk about it at the end of our time together. So if you'd like to win a free online course with EdTechTeam, a value of $149, go ahead and fill out that form. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. And I would like to introduce to you Mia Leonard from Chicago, Illinois. Mia, I'm going to hand things right over to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mia Leonard. As Lisa said, I am a kindergarten teacher from Chicago, Illinois. I teach on the South Side. I also coach primary teachers in my building. I have been teaching kindergarten for the past 8 years, and I have been integrating technology into my instruction for the past 6 years. Please follow me on Twitter at Mrs. Leonard K. So today, I would like to talk to you about sharing the voices of our littlest learners. These are often the ones whose voices go unheard, or who have difficulty sharing their ideas and thoughts, primarily because they are still learning how to read and how to write and how to express themselves. So sharing those ideas via paper and pencil tools may be a bit of a challenge, but with using technology, it makes sharing students' voices easy and fun for little learners. So one of the first things that I like to do with students to help them share their voices, to have them create. And I really, when thinking about creating, I like to think about this idea of creation versus consumption. So a lot of times in schools, we are feeding students information. They're constantly consuming, especially little learners. They're consuming phonetic knowledge and math skills, and we're giving them a lot of rote information. But in order to push those higher order thinking skills, we really want to have them creating. And this is particularly important to teachers like myself who teach in low income, high poverty areas, because there is a digital divide that exists. And research has shown that in a lot of these areas that service children that are high poverty, technology is used to just push information and to drill and kill. But in more affluent areas, technology is used to have students create and consume. So I want to make sure that my students are creating and consuming and using technology in ways that really push their thinking and their skills. So one of the easiest ways that I have students create is by using an app. One of my favorite apps is called Chatterpix. This app students love. It's really simple. And if you're just getting started with creating, would be an app that I suggest for you. So with Chatterpix, students can take a picture of absolutely anything, draw a line across that picture, and record themselves explaining that picture. And once the video curates, the picture comes to life. So I have a few examples of how I use Chatterpix in my classroom. So one way is to retell information from a book or to summarize a character or character traits. So for example, we were reading a kindergarten favorite, No David. And after reading the text, students took a picture of the cover of the book and they recorded themselves explaining character traits of the main character, David. So my little Michaela was explaining that David was naughty and using evidence from the text to support why she thought that. We also learn about young advocates in my classroom. And one way we use Chatterpix to express student learning about those advocates was to have them take a picture of advocates they learned and explain what they learned about those advocates. So students learned about Ruby Bridges, who was the first African-American girl to integrate a school in the South, or Ashawn Johnson, who was a local Chicago activist who is only a little bit older than themselves, who protested against mass school closings a few years ago in Chicago. And they used Chatterpix to bring those their ideas to life. Book Creator is another one of my absolute favorites. We use Book Creator from everything from creating science journals to making math learners. Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but would you share your slides?
Sure. Of course. I'm sorry, guys.
No worries. We just want to see what you're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Sorry, I thought I had done that. All right, everyone. Hopefully everyone can see me now.
Yeah, we're all good now. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So getting back into the creation, as I mentioned, one of my favorite tools to use in terms of creation is Book Creator. It's simple and it allows students to share their ideas through text, also through annotation and dictation, which is really great for those littlest learners who are really learning to express their ideas and kind of have difficulty putting things down on paper or who aren't typing yet. So one of the ways that I use Book Creator in my classroom is by creating severe weather books. So students were learning about different types of severe weather and they created books to explain what they learned about tornadoes. And then we took those books and we put them into WeVideo and shared them with students and families for them to enjoy. So after we get our kids into creating, then I like to push them to collaborate, to share their ideas and their voice with one another and really figure out how to make those ideas come to life. One project that we did was to create a collaborative book using that app, Book Creator. So using the anchor text, not a box, I read the story to my students. It's a story about the power of your imagination and how a box with your imagination could be anything you want it to be. So after reading the book, we had fourth graders come down to our kindergarten classroom and help our students take pictures of themselves inside of the box and annotate and include text and audio of them explaining what their box was. And then we put it all together in a collaborative book. We shared it with both classrooms. We also shared it with families as well. Students were so excited to see their ideas come to life. Another app that I absolutely love is Toontastic. This is an app that allows students to create their own cartoons. Now they are able, the thing I love about this app for little learners is because it provides them with a story arc which little learners can follow and use to organize their ideas for their cartoon. They can create a setting, they can create their own characters, they can draw them, they can take images to create their characters, they can add music to create the tone and the mood using this app. So one way that I use Toontastic specifically is to have groups of students demonstrate their learning around the life cycle of a plant. So in my class, we were studying about the life cycle, and students use Toontastic to create cartoons of that life cycle. The thing that was really powerful about using a tool like Toontastic is that students actually have to create and work together to make their videos. And it really gives me deeper insight to their understanding because they're not just looking at pictures and just recording themselves, memorizing or pasting in sequence the cycle. They actually have to create a background and an environment where plants can grow in, and they really have to explain their thinking. Another favorite of mine is the Do Ink green screen app. So we use Do Ink green screen in my classroom for collaborative projects around a number of different topics. I love to use it for literacy, to retell a story like The Little Red Hen. Also, I've used it, we were studying nursery rhymes in our classroom, and we decided to create a fractured nursery rhyme of Humpty Dumpty. So we use the Do Ink green screen app to create a background for students. And we also tie that into the content that we were studying on weather. And we had students explain what they would provide Humpty Dumpty if he were stuck on the wall throughout the 4 seasons. And then we went a little bit further and had them do some problem solving skills and discuss what they would do if he was actually stuck on top of that wall and he never fell down, and how they would get him down. And thinking more about sharing student voice, after I have students create and collaborate, another thing that I love to have my students do to push their voice and amplify it is to have them reflect on their work, on their group work, and on the work of others. So I can do this in my classroom in several different ways. I use Google Forms for students to complete reflections of group projects and work that they have done in the classroom. It allows them to reflect on not only the content that they're learning, but if it's a collaborative project, to reflect on the process and how they work together with their group. Seesaw is another favorite. This simple digital learning portfolio allows students to capture their work by taking a picture or a video, and allows them to draw or record themselves explaining. So one way that I've used Seesaw for reflection is at the end of a unit on kings and queens, I gave students a prompt. If they were a king or a queen, for a day, what would it be like? And students took a picture of themselves and they drew what they would look like, and they recorded themselves reflecting on what it would be like if they were a king or a queen for a day. And this really allowed me insight into whether or not they understood the content that was taught. I also do video reflections in my classroom. So students pair up and they video each other. They respond to a text. They summarize a text that they may have read. They answer questions about content that was introduced in our classroom. Seesaw, like I said, is one of my favorite resources, and they have developed these task cards. So isn't this great? You know, the work is already done for you. So these are task cards that students can use that allows them to reflect on their writing. So for example, one of the task cards has students to take a picture of their writing, and then they share in Seesaw what they struggled with. So not only does this allow students to express and reflect on their own writing, it also gives me insight to what students' perceived struggles are and what I can help them with as well. So after we talk about reflection, the final step in having students' voices amplify is through feedback. And I really love, even at this young age, to encourage my students to give feedback to one another. So using the digital portfolio Seesaw, I will have students post work in their journals, and then I enable peer-to-peer comments so that students can provide feedback on one another's work. This gives me a great opportunity to teach students how to give constructive feedback and comments. And with Seesaw, it makes it really easy because students can either type their comments, they can include emojis to express their comments, or they can voice record.
Wow, Mia. Yeah, you can go ahead and stop screen sharing.
All right.
Wow, so many great resources. We already have a question for you from Gloria. She's just asking how often you take the time to reflect, to have your students reflect using these apps.
Yeah, so for Seesaw, we have been actually using Seesaw since day one of school. And so I have them reflect all the time. I may not actually kind of go and look at specific comments, but they reflect after they do any piece of work. So if they finish early, if they upload a piece of work, they can comment once I approve their work that they upload in their portfolio, they can comment right away on each other's work. So we've set up parameters on how to comment. I have anchor charts in my classroom that explain what, you know, positive comments are and what constructive comments are. So at this point in the school year, they're doing it on a regular basis.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to share my screen just super quick here. And for those of you that might just be joining us now, you can find our panelists' slides. And I know there's lots of embedded videos in them. So absolutely, after the webinar is over, take some time to scroll through them. But you can find those slides at edtech.team/K2CanToo webinar. There is also a link there to a form that you can fill out to win a free online course with EdTechTeam. And the author of the course is actually with us this evening. So Susan Stewart will be telling us a bit more about the course in just about 20 minutes. So our next speaker is Janet Burnett. She comes to you from Muscle Shoals, Alabama. And I think I'm just going to stop talking and hand things over to Janet. Janet, thanks for joining us.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share my slides with you so that I can get those loading up as I speak. So I'm going to share this with you. All right. I am Janet Burnett. As Lisa mentioned, I'm the Technology Innovation Specialist for Muscle Shoals, Alabama. I've been in elementary education for 20 years now. And basically my job is to help teachers put technology into lessons that they're already teaching. I stress that all the time, that we don't want to start over from ground zero. We just want to take what we know. We're experts at the content. And so we just want to tweak that just a little bit to make it even better for our students and for the teachers too. So tonight we're going to take a look at a few of the necessities that I look for when I'm making decisions about what to roll out in the classroom. In my experience, I have found, as I've met people all over, that elementary teachers tend to want to be superheroes. In our minds, we can do tons, but sometimes without a plan, teachers get overwhelmed or they get tired. And so we have to remember that it is definitely a process. Different people have different personalities and ability levels. And of course, when you get into the technology, there's thousands of things to choose from. And in our minds, we want to use all of them. But we need to be very careful and systematic about pushing those out, both for ourselves and for our students. So there's lots of factors to consider. And you've heard that timing is everything. So the strategy is very important. As we go through tonight, I'm going to tell you just a few things that we've done in our school system that have worked for our teachers. I joined the Muscle Shoals school system about 3 years ago, and that was really the rollout of our Chromebooks. And then this year we were able to go one-to-one K through 5. So we've progressed over time. We started in a place and we've gradually added things. When the teachers felt comfortable and when the students were comfortable, we would pick up something else. So tonight we're going to look at a few things that I think are really important to make it doable for everyone. So with that, let's roll on, because we don't want to run out of gas, because that's what teachers do. And we know that if teachers run out of gas, they go back to their filing cabinets, and that is not what we're after. So one of the first things that I wanted to do that I felt like was very important for our teachers was that student engagement. I felt like we needed something, especially at the K2 level. It needs to be easy enough for the children to engage quickly, because we all know what happens if we give them any loose time. And so the very first thing that we implemented were QR codes. We went in and we taught the teachers that you can hide text in them, you can have videos in them, you can hide questions, links to websites. And listen, anything that can get 20 kindergartners on the same website in seconds it's a winner. So we're going to definitely keep that. So once our teachers figured out the power in these QR codes and the ease in it, and that they could be at their small group table working with their small groups and have, 5, 6, 7-year-olds working independently in a station, it was a good sale. So it keeps the time that is so valuable. It keeps it in check and allows them to go deeper with their learning. So we have added a Google app from the Chrome Web Store called Scan QR, and we have pinned that to the bottom of all of our student Chromebooks. So it lives down here at the bottom, and with just a click of a button, it opens up that camera for them immediately, and they're able to engage quickly. We also implemented a Symbaloo page. So we had a QR code that the students school-wide could access quickly, and then the teachers were able to add and edit those sites that they wanted them to be able to do according to the units that they were on. So a Symbaloo page is where we started with a QR code, and from there, the teachers began to pick up the fact that these QR codes were very valuable. Here is a picture in one of our first grade classrooms, and this teacher was teaching main idea and supporting details, still had the same student accountability page, but in her station, because they weren't ready to read independently yet, she chose videos. This particular one, they were studying about elephants. And so if you notice right here in front of the little girl, there is a couple of QR codes hooked to different videos. So they would listen for those supporting details and then draw the main idea from the video, which allowed the teacher to work with a small group, but the children could keep going with their learning. And from there, we went a little further, and our teachers in second grade are now using QR code research pages, such as this one, and they know that all of these sites that the children are using to research are safe and applicable to the project. So now the students just work with one sheet of paper. It has multiple links to research that's appropriate for them, and they can work independently. So that is how it's kind of progressed with our QR codes. Now, there was a game changer for sure for us. A couple of years ago, our IT guy went to ISTE and there discovered something called Clever Badges. This has been life-changing for our school. You can access these at clever.com. Your IT department has the ability to take your student names and load them into Clever. It is free for that part. And what happens is Clever will issue a QR code for each child, and it's hooked to their information that are in the files that the IT guys have. And what happens here is when they open up their Chromebooks, this little camera opens up. They hold up their QR codes, and instantly they are logged into their Google accounts. Now, I don't know if you've ever tried to get 20 kindergartners or first and second graders onto their Google accounts, but it usually takes more than a second. However, the Clever Badges have enabled us to do that very quickly. Another benefit that Clever has is that it partners with a lot of different applications. So our teachers were able to add some of their favorites into the quick links. So once they log in with that Clever Badge, not only does it log them into their Google account, but other applications that we use, such as MobyMax and such. So I wanted to include a couple of pictures here. These are a couple of things that our teachers have done in their classroom. So we have teachers that put their Clever Badges and laminate them and put them on a metal ring. The kids keep these in their desks, so it's a quick, they open their Chromebook, scan, and they're ready to go. Also, we have teachers that have even hot glued a clothespin to their desk, and they just keep that QR code pinned right there. So that's an easy way for our students to keep those handy and engage quickly. Another thing that's been very important is to remember to keep it efficient and effective. It's a teacher must and a student need. So we began to implement different Chrome extensions. and apps along the way since we are one-to-one Chromebooks. So one that we immediately began using and our teachers found out that it was very quick to use was the URL shortener here. That can be found in the Chrome Web Store. And what this allows you to do is whether it's a Google Doc, whether it's a website or a video, a particular video, you just pull that up on your screen, click that little icon at the top, and it immediately creates that QR code. So that took all of the work out of it for the teachers. And now they are able to copy and paste that onto a sheet that they leave in the station, or they can copy and paste it into a Google Doc and put it in 3 columns and cut them apart and give them to the students so that they have their own, lots of choices. That's where we started. But now that we've gone and we've got the Clever badges, all of our students have the Share to Classroom extension. And this, I can honestly say, has totally changed our school this year. Our teachers now can push out every assignment, whether it's a link, whether it is something that they've purchased from Teachers Pay Teachers, a project, whatever it is, with a click of a button. Now the kids can access those assignments very quickly and get on task immediately. And it's very simple for the teacher to do that all from her computer and have that set up ahead of time. Especially we use Nearpod in our school. So now they can even push out differentiated lessons for our students through Google Classroom. And because we've been able to do that gradually, as I told you, it's been a process. We're now using Google extensions in our school, such as Kami, to work with those Teachers Pay Teachers activities, or the webcam record where they can do video exit slips, or the voice recorder where they can do their fluency reads. So lots of choices. It's just opened up a whole new world for our teachers. So we started talking about efficient and effective. We started with something very simple. I mean, the basic. And what I mean from that is a Google Doc with an image on it. So every teacher has the ability to add a picture. It doesn't matter if you're teaching fractions, you can put a picture of a pizza on there. If you're teaching pollination with bees, you can put a picture, and it just is that little trigger that gets your kids started, gets that mind thinking. This was actually one that one of our teachers in our district found, and our kids, we had been talking about penguins, and so she did this just as a little narrative story prompt. But we had one child that raised his hand, and he said, "I think that's a fake picture." And she said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Because you just told us that penguins and polar bears do not live in the same place." So they're really picking up a lot more than you think. But the idea behind this is we often think that a blank sheet of paper is too easy, but really we can tell so much more about our students from a blank sheet of paper than we can a 10-question test. They can't fake it on a blank sheet of paper. So just by allowing them to add their thoughts to a sheet of paper and getting that little spark started with an image, we are able to tell things such as, how deep does their learning go? Are they able to write a sentence in 5 minutes, or are they able to write a paragraph? Do they use capital letters? Do they use punctuation? Do they use the vocabulary that we've been talking about in the lesson? And if so, how deep does their learning go? Really, by giving them a blank sheet of paper, they will differentiate themselves. And you could almost go to small groups just from something that simple. And it takes our teachers less than a minute to create and to push out their Google Classroom. So a very effective tool, and just so simple. And then the best part about my job is that I plant a seed, and then my teachers, I get to watch them grow the ideas. So I had a 2nd grade teacher that took that idea of the picture and letting them write, only she added a table to the blank sheet of paper, and that turned into a point of view lesson, just something that simple. And so then this year we were able, now that they know how to add a table, we've turned into the hyperdocs. And so here is a simple hyperdoc that one of our 1st grade teachers created in the fall when they were learning about bats. And you can see that she's using that to house a lot of the different tools that we've learned about, such as videos, online books, Flipgrid, labeling the parts with Kami, and then even incorporating Chatterpix like Mia was talking about just a second ago. So the last thing that I want to kind of touch on tonight is I'm really big on stressing to our teachers that we just want to enhance the lessons that you're already teaching. So I'm going to give you an example here. This is a little map that I found on Teachers Pay Teachers. We've all seen them. It was in November. I was doing this little lesson to teach our kids how to use Kami. But I thought, you know what? It would be so neat if we could just take that and add a 360 view from Google Maps just by dropping Pegman at Plymouth Rock and letting them look around. And then that kind of turned into, well, if I'm going to use 360, then I might be able to show them a little video that'll push out the content. And then I came back to my map that originally was the spark for this lesson, was able to show them how to follow along with me using Kami and actually participate in the lesson there. At the end, they used Flipgrid to reflect on what they had learned. And then I was able to add a website link for those that finished a little bit early and wanted to go deeper with their learning. But I housed it all in a HyperDoc. So actually, this is the same Google Doc principle, only now we've added a table, and it's a nice way to organize all of the tools that you know about, but in a manageable way. So now it becomes a student-centered classroom rather than the teacher pushing out everything from the front. So I want to finish up tonight with a couple of projects that we've tried in our school. And I love to do this because this is where I think the rubber meets the road. We as teachers naturally gravitate toward other people's projects because it's our heart. So here's an example of how we use voice recorder where I was talking earlier. It's you can find that in the Chrome Web Store. Our students have been making reports on Abraham Lincoln and George Washington for years. So they did the same assignment that they normally do, looking up facts about those presidents, only this time we went a step further, and to work on fluency practice, we used voice recorder to record them. And because voice recorder, when you click save, will automatically save to Google Drive, we were able to make QR codes and create our own talking hall of presidents. This is another idea that one of our first grade teachers, she has used these student accountability pages, these graphic organizers, probably just like you do in your classroom for years, but she didn't want to stop there. So she came to me and she said, we've done this. We've worked on capitalization and punctuation, and we've got this created here, but could we teach our first graders how to do a Google Slides presentation? So the great thing about Google Slides is it never changes. It doesn't matter if it's in first grade or 12th grade. It's the same principle. And so our students in first grade learned how to insert a text box, how to insert an image, and then they put one sentence on each slide and an image. And they were so proud of their work at the end. But what that really did is that enabled us to teach the skill, and now the teachers can go back and change the content all along the way. And then here's another project. Our second graders always do the famous American reports. I showed you this earlier where they were using the QR codes to research. Only this time they still did the same drawings of their famous Americans, but again, they've recorded their reports once they were finished with the voice recorder. And what it really did is it uncovered another lesson, because as they were reading, they realized that, you know what, if they're the ones doing the talking, they wouldn't be calling their name like Abraham Lincoln lived. He would say, I lived. And so just from that little project, we were able to do QR code research. The students were doing writing, they were working on fluency, and it turned into a point of view lesson. And so now this is where we are in our district. We're really going to try to work on HyperDocs a little bit more. It's just taking the lessons that you're already teaching, putting them all in one convenient spot, and then that turns it into the perfect stations to be used in the classroom. So remember, it's a process. We all want to be superheroes, but the best thing for us to do is just to remember to stick with things that will engage them, be efficient and effective, and enhance the lessons that you're already teaching. And that will keep it manageable for you and your students.
Janet, thank you so much. I have to tell you, I really had to type and click fast to keep up with all of the links that you were sharing. It's a little bit of echo. Yep. All of the links that you were sharing. But I did want to say that we had a question for you. And the question is from Michelle Palmieri. She is doing a unit with her pre-K through first grade teachers next week on bats. And you had a hyperdoc about bats, and she was wondering if you could share that link. So if you want to send it to me, Janet, go ahead and unmute. If you want to send it to me,
I will be glad to do that. One of our first grade teachers created that, but I am sure that she would be more than willing to share that. So I'll share that link with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Janet. You can just go ahead and send it to me via chat, and I'll put it in the the YouTube chat, which is a lively crew with lots of ideas to share. So speaking about sharing, I'm just going to go ahead and screen share one more time. Well, not one more time, but again. And for those of you that are just coming to the live webinar right now, you can find all of the slides and resources from our 3 panelists at edtech.team/K2CanToo webinar. There's also a link there, which a lot of people have filled out, to win the free EdTechTeam online course that we're going to be giving out. I'll use a random name picker at the end called Name Picker Ninja to pick somebody's name that's filled out the form. The author of the course is with us tonight and is our next speaker, Susan Stewart, and she actually a little bit later on is going to tell you all about the course. But I would go ahead and fill out that form and get your name in there as soon as you can. So, excuse me, without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to the person that came up with the name K2CanToo, and all of her resources are at primarily google.rocks. I'm gonna stop. Oh no, so I was showing Janet instead of me. Yep, these things happen. So I'm gonna go ahead and move things over to Susan. Thanks, Susan.
Hello, hello, hello. There we go. We going, we screen sharing. Awesome. Hi, I'm Susan. I'm a tech coach. Follow me on Twitter at TechCoachSusan. Susan, Tech Coach, see what I did there? I cracked myself up. I spent 14 years in K2 classrooms, and now I'm in my 5th year supporting teachers as an instructional coach. K2CanToo is something I believe in so much, and especially just empowering our youngest learners with modern learning tools. So yeah, let's talk. These are our students today, right? Even our youngest students, they have access to the world's information right in their tiny, adorable little hands, and they have those powerful digital connections to the world. Students today, they're global learners. And so that kind of brings up that question of what does it mean to be a global learner? And how does that look with very young children? So this concept of global learning has become one of my biggest passions, especially with those young students, because one part of global learning is learning about the world, learning about people, about places, about cultures, creating understanding and compassion for people who are different from us. And we know that the world right now really can use more of that. And another layer of global learning has to do with learning with the world, breaking down the 4 walls of the classroom and giving even our youngest students opportunities to have a global audience. That audience could start small. Mia talked about Seesaw earlier, and it's such a perfect tool for building foundations in audience, because maybe their first audience is of their peers, their parents, and the first global connection they make doesn't necessarily have to be a classroom in Africa. We can set foundations by connecting to another classroom in the same school or maybe in a nearby city. So a couple experiences in the past year really sparked my passion for global learning. And the first was my trip to London for the Google Innovator Academy. We had 36 educators from 12 different countries having these powerful conversations about making education the absolute best it can possibly be for our students. And that really helped me realize that if we want to change the world, we have to consider the needs of the whole world and not just our tiny part of it. So how does that begin? Digital tools facilitate global connections that may have been much more complicated in the past, right? Students can share content online to that audience, and we can connect with experts using Google Hangouts. And then we have tools like Google Earth and Google Cardboard. We can take virtual tours of destinations like all around the world. It's so easy for kids to see these amazing faraway places. But with this ease of access, like the world's feeling smaller, but it also makes our classroom so much bigger. And the truth is, before we can start connecting young learners to the world, we have to set some foundations in what exactly that means, because our young students really have no concept of the enormity of the world. And so we have to talk about how can we develop this broader lens of our young students and our young students who sometimes struggle seeing past themselves. So foundations, let's talk about setting foundations, because that's our role in the primary grades. We set foundations in everything. We set foundations for reading by teaching phonics and phonemic awareness. We set foundations for math. So let's talk about some geographic foundations we can set through this tool called Google My Maps. My Maps is different from the Google Maps you use to get directions or find a restaurant, because with My Maps, it's a customizable, personalizable map tool that you and your students can use to create right in your Google Drive. It's one of those underloved tools, like hidden gems inside your Google Drive. In second grade, we read a text called How to Make an Apple Pie and See the World. In the story, this little girl soars around the world gathering ingredients for her apple pie. She goes to Vermont to get some apples. She goes to Jamaica to get her sugar cane. She goes to Sri Lanka to get cinnamon. The problem with a text like this is that very young children have any context of the world beyond their own school and neighborhood, let alone know where Sri Lanka is. So we used My Maps and we created something. Using My Maps, you're able to add little individual pins and then add pictures and even videos as a way to retell a story. And of course, again, starting with foundations, one thing students really understand is their own neighborhood, their own community. So we started with this map of our town, our tiny little town of Fowler, and we dropped little pins on where our school was and important places like the pizza factory and Starbucks, of course. It was very important that they knew where Starbucks was. And we could write customizable messages like, this is Marshall School, our principal is Mrs. Denton, we have a fun library and a cool playground. We could personalize this and start developing context for our students, starting with their place on the map. And then we talk about texts, other texts we read, the Magic Treehouse series by Mary Pope Osborne, for example. Like, we regularly take students on these treks around the globe, but they don't have that global context. So what if we were reading books, Flat Stanley, Magic Treehouse, and we tracked our journeys so we could put all those locations into some context for them. So in this example, we put a star right on Fowler, California, where we live. And then every time we read another Magic Treehouse text, we dropped a pen and dropped a pen and dropped a pen. I have an example of a first grade teacher who, on the first day of school, they put a pin on our school. And then every time they went somewhere in text, when they read about a person, when they learned about a person, when they read a book that took them somewhere, they dropped pins. And would you believe by the end of that year in first grade, those students had gone 86 places in text, and they had this map to develop context of how that worked. So again, My Maps is a way to summarize text. When we read a biography of an important person in history, we can map all those places that the text might talk about. For example, in this biography we read in kindergarten about Barack Obama, we were able to drop a pin to show where he grew up there in Hawaii. So how do I get started, you ask? Two different ways. Again, I said it was one of those hidden gems in your Google Drive. So if you are in Drive and you just click New More, like all the best tools are hiding under the More menu, right? So New More and My Maps, or you can just go right there to mymaps.google.com. One thing I've created to share with you is this My Maps cheat sheet. If you go to bit.ly/mymaps cheat sheet, there's a little tool there that'll give you a good walkthrough of what all the buttons do. But really the best thing when it comes to little learners is just to open up and push all the buttons, right? Push all the buttons and see what they do, because there are so many great, amazing ways that we could use this with our young students.
I lost my mouse there for a second. Sorry. Thanks, Susan. You can go ahead and turn off screen sharing. Thanks so much. Oh, someone, Michelle from the chat is saying that My Maps is blocked in her district, which is such a shame. But I shared the bit.ly. I know. Does anyone happen to know any alternatives? There are Office 365 districts. I don't know. I still remember the days of using MapQuest and having to print it out and bring it with me because, you know, it was better than the Garmin, right?
So one potential option for that, I would say, is that you can log in with a Gmail account. So if you wanted to create collaborative ones, not necessarily putting students on there, but you could still in a Gmail account create those maps and be able to share them and show them to a whole class with a Gmail account. So even though the school domain might not allow that, you could still have the students collaborate. Sometimes they could just put their information on a little post-it and then you can put the content together.
Thanks, Susan. And actually, I'd love it if you tell us a little bit about the primarily Google course that you just finished writing.
Yeah. Do you have that one slide up we can get up? So primarily Google Online. Just some quick background. I started using Google Forms with my second graders in 2008. My friend Mark Hammonds shared this tool with me. And we didn't have Google Apps for Education. It wasn't a thing. And my second graders used Google Forms for everything. And then in 2012, my district started using Chromebooks and the Google Suite. And we just use Google for everything. So I have about 5 years experience of a one-to-one use of the Google tools with young students. And I wanted to find a way to share all of the experiences we've had and all the learnings we've had and the amazing things my students and teachers have created over the years. So we put together the primarily Google online course that is now available. Well, it'll be available on May 1st, but right now, if you sign up, you can get a pre-launch coupon for a significant discount. So go to edtech.team/primarily Google. There are course credits available for an additional cost if you need units. If you're a young teacher and you're still trying to get some units, you can take this 15-hour course. And the cool thing about this course, it's one of those make and take kinds of courses. So you'll listen to some tutorials, but you'll also be creating content for your young students that you can apply and use right in your classroom.
Great, thank you so much, Susan. And I'm just gonna circle back to just a couple of things, and then we're gonna do our drawing for the free course. So I should have just kept screen sharing with everyone. Let's try that again. Great, so Susan went over the coupon code K2CanToo for the new course launching May 1st. Hopefully you have filled out the form to win a free seat. It's worth $149. I'm gonna do a random name picker pretty soon. I ask you to learn more and stay connected with EdTechTeam. Follow us on Twitter, join the Google Plus community, visit us at edtechteam.com. And of course, you already know you can find all of tonight's slides at edtech.team/K2CanToo webinar. All right, so everything's right there for you in the slide deck. There's a link to the archive webinar. There's a link to the archive chat, which I'm going to put in that Google Doc that I have linked there. There's a link to request a workshop. And any one of the speakers, Janet, Mia, or Susan, do professional development on behalf of EdTechTeam on a regular basis. We love these so intelligent ladies. And if you want a 1-hour PD certificate for tonight, go ahead and click that link there. So I know that Susan also wanted to talk about our second or third ever K2CanToo event. You can bring this to your district. Our most recent one was in Alisal, California. Susan, did you want to just speak about that real quick while I have the slide up?
Yeah, for sure. So we had a K2CanToo event, and the idea behind this is PD that is fun, PD that considers the unique needs of working with very young children. There's so much that comes along with working with teaching young students, social emotional considerations, fine motor development, students that aren't yet reading. So how do we merge these modern tools as well as all of those unique needs of teaching young children? So we created professional development designed especially for the teachers of our littlest learners. And gosh, we had such a great time. And imagine being at a technology conference where every session is designed for K2 teachers. And that's what K2CanToo is. And yeah, if you'd like to bring one to your school, please click on the link, request a workshop, and we would love to come out and see you.
Thanks, Susan. And then as we wind things up, I just want to announce the next TNL monthly webinar will be May 8th, same time, same place. Chromebooks as Tools for Creativity. We are going to have 3 stellar speakers, panelists with us that evening. So make sure that'll go out on social media later tonight or tomorrow morning so that you can RSVP and get the join link for that as well. So let's see who our lucky winner is. What I'm going to do, and I am still screen sharing just to show you that I'm being fair here. I'm going to copy those names, paste them into the name picker ninja, and click go. And Sharon DeWitt is the winner of the free online course. So congratulations, Sharon. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you online. Janet and Mia and Susan, thank you so much for your time and expertise this evening. I had a blast with you guys. Say goodbye.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for coming.